Welcome to Beyond the Gate, a podcast sharing the grit, growth, and spirit of rural life. From fields to front porches, this is where the heart of agriculture comes to life. Today we go beyond the gate and into the world of fishing with entrepreneur John Bledsoe, owner, founder of Co-Angler. John, thank you for sitting down with me and welcome to Beyond the Gate.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, John, I know a lot about agriculture and I love rural life, but I don't know a lot about fishing. But living in Southwest Missouri, I think streams, rivers, lakes surround us. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We're going to talk about Co-Angler. I want to get to know you, John Bledsoe. We've met today for the first time, but your connection is through my husband, Kevin. You guys both went through the E-Factory and that incubator of startup brains and startup minds. So before E-Factory, before Co-Angler, who's John?
Yeah, John was, most recently before Co-Angler, a chemist.
I wouldn't have guessed you would have said that.
Right. And before the chemistry, I was in a rock band.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
so rock band, chemist, fisherman.
Yeah.
Tech startup, entrepreneur.
Yeah. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Man, it all fits.
Yeah. So, I grew up right here in the Ozarks, small town of Pleasant Hope. A little over 600
it well.
600 people just north of Springfield. Love that town.
Probably know a lot of the same people.
Probably, especially if you know anybody from Pleasant Hope. You probably
Small world.
know most of them. But grew up on the banks of the Pomme de Terre River out there fishing and playing in the creeks, and ended up moving to Springfield for college and studied science and really enjoyed that pathway, and had some buddies from high school where we were in a rock band. They're actually still together.
Okay, so what instrument?
I was a guitar player and co-wrote a lot of the songs, but we toured here in the Midwest and released a couple albums.
Can you say the name?
Yeah, Troy.
Troy. Okay,
Troy,
I was like, the secret, you're being elusive.
Yeah, and then I actually released a solo album of my own in June of 23. Recorded a great studio.
Well, let's plug that.
Yeah, John Bledsoe, Under the Rocks on Spotify and all listening platforms. But
wherever you get your podcasts.
But yeah, it was chemistry that kind of naturally led getting a job and recreating and being able to afford a boat that kind of naturally progressed into what turned out to be
Co-Angler. You can afford to have a pastime, a hobby.
Right. That was exactly what it was. And where I'd previously been fishing out of friends' boats or my dad's boat or kayaks, I was able to actually buy a boat of my own, and that opened me up to a whole new set of experiences and problems and opportunities, and that's how I fell into this Co-Angler.
Well, I think that you said problems and opportunities. And I think every entrepreneur that I've ran across, and sometimes the way my brain thinks is you see a problem and you don't think about, or you think about that solution. You don't just forget about it and complain that this problem's in there. You figure out what that solution is. So let's go into Co-Angler. What was the problem that you found? Yeah,
so firsthand experience for me, the problem was a moment of loneliness and isolation. So, like I said, I grew up, on the Pomme de Terre River, and I was fishing on my boat. This was about 4 years ago, October of 21, and I was fishing by myself on a beautiful fall afternoon, and happened to think to myself after looking at my empty seat in my boat, why didn't I bring somebody with me? Or, man, I wish I had somebody out here, to enjoy this, beautiful afternoon. And that's when the wheels kind of started turning. I was like, wait a second, why isn't there something out there? And I was almost struck with this eureka moment, like an app for fishing, like to connect people. And I knew, that there wasn't anything out there like that. And I was just so excited and energized by that concept, and went home and called one of my best friends on the phone. I was like, bro, I got to tell you what happened when I was out fishing today. And he was just right there with me, like super enthusiastic and excited. And as I'm sitting here explaining to him, the details of what this concept was, bless his heart, he got online while he was talking to me and got on GoDaddy.com and bought coangler.com for me for $13.
The very first conversation, he believed in the idea.
Yeah. And he's like, you got to build this now. And
Did you already have that name?
I came up with the name Co-Angler on the boat. And yeah, it was, he bought Co-Angler with the hyphen, and it was, anytime you have a hyphen in your URL, it reduces the price significantly, but it was $13.
It was discounted.
Yeah, and so he bought it for me, and I had to figure out how to build an app after that. And later on, I went and bought Co-Angler without the hyphen from a gentleman who had actually bought several URLs and .coms. He would use the state abbreviation followed by angler, so he had Co-Angler, Colorado. Yeah, and so he wished me some good luck starting my fishing business in Colorado. And I was like, yeah, thanks, but I'm doing something completely different. But the Co-Angler name is something that's well known, especially in tournament bass fishing. It's a role that people play, almost like the minor leagues or the entry level position that people get into the sport, without boats, fishing, accompanied by pros and their boats. But so yeah, that's where I had to figure out as a chemist
how to build an app.
How to build an app, yeah.
I have a little bit of app experience, meaning I've never built one, but I've married a man who built one, and he's not a coder. He just has ideas. And so I know the journey that goes into that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. It's expensive, too.
Yeah, that was the first thing I learned in this endeavor, was how expensive it is. And, being that I was a chemist, I had, one computer science class in college. So to think that I could, build the app on my own, I was just immediately, that's off the table. And I started reaching out to, different software development companies, local, abroad, big, small, in between. And I got quotes to build my MVP, the minimum viable product, anywhere from $40,000 all the way up to $500,000.
Oh, yeah.
So the sticker shock was real. And, started kind of uncovering which companies I think might be appropriate. Found a local company that I almost, pulled the trigger and went with. They were going to give me a pretty reasonable quote in comparison. It was still going to be almost $40,000, but I was right there. It's like, I think I'm going to. And then another program became available here in Springfield that at first I thought, no, that's not possible. And what it was a 10-month-long software development training boot camp called Code Labs that was offered in person at the E-Factory 2 nights a week by a company called Codify. And
which is another Missouri company based out of Cape Girardeau, correct?
Yep. And
I know my startup lingo,
right,
Missouri.
Right. That's something that came across my table that at first I was like, I can't go learn to code. Like, that's going to be too hard. It'll take too long. And so I'd pretty much written that off. And then a couple of weeks before the applications were due, I had another light bulb go off. I was like, wait a second. If I'm going to build an app, like, I at least need to know how they're made, even from a high level. And so I decided to put my name in the hat, put an application in, ended up going through an interview process as somebody who was trying to follow an app idea rather than become a professional developer, and actually got into the program and started going to class 2 nights a week at the E-Factory and beating
back to college.
Yeah, beating my head against the wall, total imposter syndrome. This is, like trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. But there were some moments when I was like, even talked to my friend that bought coangler.com for me. I was like, I don't think I can do this. I think I might have to quit. And he's like, yeah, I don't blame you, man. It sounds pretty hard.
He's
I was
supposed
like,
to be the encourager.
Right. And but I kept showing up, and then about a month into the program, what I found realized was my teacher is offering office hours every weekend, from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday for anybody that wants to come in and get extra help. And as soon as I realized that, I started going every single weekend. And none of my classmates or fellow students would show up. And so I would just get this one-on-one time with my teacher, who's a professional developer. And together, he worked with me on, it came to me at my level.
Valuable.
Oh, it was so incredibly valuable. And what I learned was, I had to start from scratch. Like we built a landing page, with the sign up and create your account.
That's the easy stuff.
And then I was like, okay, what's next? And then I was like a deer in headlights, and we had to take a huge step backwards. And instead of me actually coding and building more things at that point in time, I had to step back and start using, like Photoshop or Figma, like design software to actually create the user interface.
Which is a whole other learning curve.
Right. And wireframe. So I had to, spend a month or two just doing that. Like, what does a page look like? Where does that take you when you click this button? What's the style guide, the font, the colors,
You had to actually create the brand.
Right. And, but it taught me so much about the entire process from beginning to end. And by the second semester of the program, we were working in the back end, building like the database and how all of that works and ties together. And we actually got to where we had a functioning prototype, like where it actually worked and we could host it locally on our machines. And but that was the genesis that was where the app development process started. And but there is one additional detail that kind of helped accelerate product development, which I think is really important to note. And there was one day I had went into office hours on the weekend to work with my teacher, whose name's German Cruz. And
let's give him a plug.
Yeah, he's a great friend now. And but he was taking notice of how much work and effort that I'd been putting in. And Codify, the company that employed him, does a lot for entrepreneurs and tech startups. They've had accelerator programs like the First 50K. And he encouraged me to reach out to his boss, at the time was Chris Carnell, one of the co-founders, and said, John, you should just reach out to him, let him know what you're doing. Just tell him about what you've been working on and building.
Expand that network.
Yeah. And so I sent him a cold email, and he got back to me, and we set up a meeting. And I had a real short 10 pages long slide deck, kind of going over, who am I, what's my problem, what's my solution, your typical. But I didn't even really think I was pitching. I just thought it was a great way to kind of explain what it is that I'm doing. And had a great call, and he was, asking me some questions that later on, in this journey I learned that are like investor type questions. And it wasn't 4 or 5 hours after that meeting that I got an email from him. Hey, John, it was great to connect today. Really like what you're doing and how much work you're putting in. We've actually got some grant dollars that, we allocate to help, tech entrepreneurs in rural, areas. And we'd like to support your project with, professional developer, designer, and project manager. And we've got up to about $75,000 that we can. And I just thought I'd,
That's
hit gold. Yeah. Especially because, I'd been bootstrapping this and hadn't, I didn't have.
You hadn't jumped in the fundraising realm yet.
Right. And so to have that opportunity, just kind of stumble upon that. And so that was a huge milestone for me in the product development stage of the company, to be able to, actually have a team of people now without just me, spearheading this on my own. So
that's a really big deal to be under their umbrella, because there's many other brands that throughout the state. And I think that I don't think I would have realized this, but the resources in Missouri for startups, not just investment dollars, but that knowledge and that class. Right. And the E-Factory is a big supporter of that. I know many that have gone through it. So you've gone through the development process. You have a finished product. What do I do with it? What do I do on Co-Angler?
Right.
Who's it for?
Yeah. So Co-Angler is really, first and foremost, meant to address a problem that people face when they want to go experience an outdoor activity, and that's having somebody to do it with. A lot of times when people go fishing, their friends or their fishing partners or family members may not be available. A lot of people out there want an opportunity to meet new people under a common place and a great activity
equal
like
passion.
Fishing. Yeah, there's a famous, he's passed away now, but Forrest Wood, who founded Ranger Boats, was famous for saying there's no better common ground than two people can find than on the front deck of a fishing boat. And so I think it's just one of those experiences that helps break down barriers and allows people to find a sense of commonality. But that's it. I even say, like, Co-Angler isn't a fishing company. It is really a people company, and fishing is the avenue that we're using to bring people together. But first and foremost, like I said, finding fishing partners, people to go out and share the experience with, but also reducing some of those barriers to the outdoors. So things like rising cost. So there's a shared cost feature, so you can split some gas money or chip in on the expenses for the trip. There's also the knowledge transfer, so you can learn from more experienced people.
That's what I was thinking, is it, like, sometimes there's a generational gap, and you've got a young person who doesn't have a mentor.
Right.
Or this seasoned fisherman or woman who doesn't have a grandson, granddaughter to pass that knowledge off on. And so I think of that intergenerational connection that so many lack.
Yeah, and that's, you think about, old and young, older anglers and fishermen and women, they tend to have more experience, more equipment, more knowledge and wisdom, where those younger, more green, anglers, they may not know where to start. They may not have the equipment, may not know how to throw a bait caster, versus a spinning reel, or how to set a trot line, so, what better way, you can sit and watch YouTube videos all day long, but there's no better way to actually learn than to go out and do it, and to have a trusted platform to be able to connect with people in your community for fishing trips. That's, essentially at its core is what it's about, is using technology that, keeps us in today's day and age a little bit more isolated than we should be. But
you're doing the opposite of that.
Right.
And that's what's cool.
Right. Use the technology to get back out in the real world and meet people in real life.
Well, your tagline sums that up exactly. Fish smarter together. Using that technology, that wisdom, that shared cost, but doing it with a like mind.
Yep, absolutely.
So another aspect of it is not everybody has a boat. And I think that's the biggest barrier. I think, you grew up standing on the pond bank and you fish in Grandpa's ponds.
Yeah.
And, you think of, like, the average Missourian probably is pretty close to a fishing pole if they don't have one in their garage.
Right.
But when you want to scale that up and you want to visit Lake of the Ozarks or Palm de Terre or Table Rock, you have to have a boat.
Right. Yeah, and a kayak is also a boat, and that's one thing that I was reminded of when I launched this app, because when I first launched the web app in November of 23, it was me leading by example in the beginning, and I still use the app. I enjoy using the app, and co-angler's really a two-sided marketplace, so users can offer trips, say, hey, I have a boat and an extra seat, and I'm willing to go fish this lake for 4 hours, and you can chip in $50 and come fish with me for the day. And or you could have a kayak and say, hey, I've got a kayak, I need help with a shuttle, or I've got an extra kayak. And so when I first launched the web app, I was offering trips, I was taking people out with me, and it was pretty exciting when people started offering trips of their own, here in the local Ozarks region, and I was the first person to join those trips and go fishing with them. It was where I did a lot of my customer discovery and early, got some of my earliest user feedback. But the first trip that actually got planned through the app where I wasn't involved as one of the co-anglers was a kayak fishing trip where the gentleman had 2 kayaks. He just needed somebody to help with shuttling. And they actually scheduled their trip on the James River for smallmouth. Ended up having to cancel it because flooding events in the spring of that year. But they rescheduled on their own off the app and went to the Gasconade and still made the trip happen, and got back to me with success stories and them holding fish and how that. But one gentleman drove 2.5 hours from like Kansas City to come down and fish with this guy.
Well, that was okay. That was my question: is your audience locals to locals, or is it pulling in that tourist that is just here for a weekend?
So about half of my user base is in the Ozarks right now, but we do have users spread across almost all 50 states. But I talked earlier about the offer a trip feature. We also have a feature that mirrors that for people that may not have the means or are looking for fishing opportunities, and that's the general trip request. So you can get on there and post that to the global feed, and it says, hey, I'm wanting to go fishing. Here's kind of what I'm looking for, where I'm wanting to do it. and how much money I'm willing to chip in. And that feature has been pretty successful as well for connecting people. Say you're going to be traveling to Florida. You could, a week or two or a month before you go, you can actually drop a pin on a location that you'd want to fish and say, hey, I'm looking to go tarpon fishing, in Florida in a month. And then actually people in that area will get notifications that are on the app saying, hey, there's somebody looking for a trip, coming up soon. And that's actually been one of our most successful features since we've launched, which is the trip notification feature. So if you post a trip offer or a general trip request, everybody within 100 miles of that trip location gets an email and a push notification that says, hey, there's a new trip in your area. And
tease them with the idea of it.
Yeah, and that's one of the most successful features we've built in. I'm getting, I can measure open rates on those transactional emails, and it's astonishing. I'm getting nearly 100% open rate.
Well, as a scientist, you're probably nerding out with all the data that you're collecting with this stuff.
I try and collect the data and, what's useful and meaningful. And, a lot of the data that I pay attention to is, there's a lot of social media data. How is my content and my branding resonating? Also, what's the activity on the app? How many users do I have? How active are they from a monthly, weekly, daily perspective?
Season.
Yeah, it's a seasonal sport, so you see, a lot of changes come the latter half of the year. But the data and analytics. But at the same time, there is a lot of data involved. But what I'm trying to do is can be broken down so simply. It's how many people are on the app and how many people are going fishing. So those are the most two important pieces of statistical relevance that I choose to look at.
Well, take me through the experience. I've downloaded the app, Apple, Android.
Yep.
Okay.
Both.
So I've downloaded the app and I'm ready to create an account and then customize my profile. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, the onboarding process is pretty simple. As long as you're 18 years old and you have an email account, you can create an account. Once your account's created, you basically are in the app. You can explore the feed, filter that. Right now we are in the off season, so the trips are limited. And, I brought up earlier about the trips notification feature. What used to take days or weeks to get trips booked and people paired up to go fishing, with this new trips notification feature, it actually takes just a few hours now.
Well, because you're not having, as a user, you're not having to remember to check this app or remember it's coming to you.
Yeah, and so while that's great, it means the app's working well. It's working well quickly. One thing I learned, people that fish, half of all fishing trips are planned less than 24 hours in advance. It's typically a impromptu trip. Hey, let's go fishing. The weather's right. But so that's proven to be also challenging to keep that supply of trips on the app, because when a trip gets posted, they go so fast. So it's kind of that double-edged sword. I love to see that it's working for people, but also, keeping the supply of trips, especially in the off season. But where was I going with that?
Oh, just the experience. So you download the app, you create the account, and then at that point you can offer or
request
trips.
Yeah, so one major feature that we just built in recently is the enhanced angler profile. So we really took some time to spend a little bit more on what does your profile do? Is it just a simple profile picture, cover photo, about section, and location? That's what it was for quite some time, and we went in and added a lot of these enhanced features where you can really start to build more of a fishing profile. What type of fishing do you like to do? What techniques do you like to do? You can add all these tags. How often do you go fishing? How good do you think you are at fishing? We've got a slider scale where you can set, your
That's
fishing confidence.
Where the big fish stories probably start coming out of.
Well, don't forget, when you walk into Bass Pro, it says, welcome hunters, fishermen, and other liars, too. So.
Yeah.
But anyways, I set those, those metrics so that users can gauge their own confidence level. And those sliders range from I suck at fishing to fish fear me and everything in between. And then you can also now upload pictures of your boat and your truck or your equipment, your electronics, things that kind of give other people on the profile or the platform and the ability to kind of see how serious you are. And then one of the features that I'm most excited about on your profile is your own dedicated maps. You can actually add fishing spots, catch locations. You'll eventually be able to use it for trip reports. So as simple as, zooming in on one of your favorite fishing holes, dropping a pin, adding a photo and a short description to be able to...
It's almost like a social network within the app, but also this is all collected outside. It's collected out and about where you're not just staring at a screen.
Right. And that's ultimately the goal, is to get people to use the technology to go outside. One other feature that we recently added to the profile, this influence came from LinkedIn. They have that open to work, where you can click your profile, puts a little banner on your profile picture and says, hey, I'm looking for a job or something. I was like, how cool would that be if you did something similar for Co-Angler and called it Open to Fish? And just kind of a quicker one button click to show people that, hey, I'm actually here to go fishing. And so we launched
more the instant gratification components.
And we launched that feature and immediately saw like dozens of users turn that on right off the bat. So we're in a pretty cool spot right now where we're actively building in new features on the app, and we can test them in real time immediately and see, well, that didn't work well, or a lot of people turned this on and looked at this. So but the Open to Fish feature is a really cool way for anglers to kind of highlight their own profile and say, yeah, I'm here, let's plan a fishing trip together. And it gives less of a constriction and friction around actually planning a fishing trip, because that's one thing. In the beginning, I brought up that statistic about, half of fishing trips being planned 24 hours in advance. Well, when I first got started building the MVP, I realized that I kind of over-engineered the trip planning process in the beginning. It was like a 3-step thing. You had all these
way
form fields.
Too complicated.
It's like, what day are you going? What time are you going? How long are you going?
I don't know yet.
Yeah. And so we're actually releasing a new feature here in the next week or two that is basically overhauling the entire trip planning process, where a lot of those fields are optional now, and what used to take minutes to post a trip is going to take seconds. And we've got trip templates, and she'll be able to repost previous trips. And so that's something that we've learned along the way to try and make it easier for people to use the platform. So
is there a cost associated? Do you have to pay to be a member?
So the platform is completely free to use for the time being. There are costs associated when you book the trip with the other angler, and so if they have a shared cost or a price for that trip, you will have to pay them, and that transaction takes place outside of the app. So we're not actually processing any commission payments or subscriber revenue. And I think that's the way it should be for the time period that we're in right now. When you launch something brand new, like
when did you launch? We didn't go through that timeline.
So the native mobile app went live in April of this year. So you can download it to your phone since April. And then the web app that is also mobile friendly, we launched that in November of 23. And so I spent most of last year getting the word out and signing up users and trying to get toward, because that was almost the number one request people had after we launched the web app was, when's it going to be a mobile app? And people don't really know the difference between a web app and a mobile app. And when you say app, they think download to your phone. So we had to quickly try and get
and I think that there's some people are like, because fishermen are of all ages.
Yes.
And so that older demographic's like, and they might have an iPad.
Right.
They might use a desktop still. But the app you got to create them both.
Yeah.
You got to pay to create them both. And so you need them both because of the generations, and you never know where you're going to be.
Yeah.
And most people booking a fishing trip probably aren't at their desk.
Right.
But the options are needed.
Yeah, and we've kept the web app functioning, but once we launched the mobile app, most of our development is going to the app first, because I mean, we do have a user base that continues to use the web phone. There's people out there that just refuse to download a new app to their phone. So we have to make sure that we're keeping that up. But if you want the additional functionality and a lot of the cool bells and whistles, definitely the native mobile app is, what I recommend.
So, because you met my husband, I will share that he has added a question to my it wasn't live, but he told me to ask. They said you've been endorsed by Bill Nance.
Bill Dance.
Dance.
Yeah.
There's a typo.
Oh yeah.
Who is he? What does this endorsement look like for a co-angler?
Well, Bill Dance is the most well-known fishing personality on planet Earth, and
I don't know who he is. I'll Google him. I'll Google him.
If you're outside of the fishing world, I can understand that. But if you just know the slightest thing about fishing and television, he's the guy. He's famous for, well over 40 years of televised Bill Dance Outdoors. And he has a Tennessee hat, and he had a blooper reel that just sent him into stardom too. He's one of the funniest, lighthearted people that has taught so many people how to fish on Saturday mornings.
And he knows who you are.
Yeah. Well, because there's a few backstories there as to how our paths crossed, but I was lucky enough to get an endorsement from him. He's helped on social media. So when I was promoting the web app, he did a social media post for me, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because there is a kind of a funny backstory in how I met him. But yeah, he did a social media post for me early on, and I went from 300 users to 700 users like overnight. Went from 5 states to 45 states. I was signing up a new user every 6 minutes.
Oh my God!
And they did all that promotion out of the kindness of their heart, because they
supported like-minded people.
I'm actually wearing Bill Dance shoes right here.
Oh,
so those are
we'll endorse Bill Dance.
They're a little dirty right now because I use them all the time,
worn.
But yeah, Bill Dance shoes, you can buy them at
They
Bass
look like
Pro.
fancy boat shoes.
Right, they're really comfortable. But yeah, he has just been somebody that I've respected his career. And what happened was I went through a business incubator program through the University of Arkansas called GORP, from the Greenhouse Outdoor Recreation Program, and basically had to go to business school for 3 months in Bentonville. And this program, they taught you everything from branding to marketing to the legal entity formation to how to start a company. And
I've talked with other guests about the hats you wear, and when you're starting from scratch, you have to know it all. You have to wear all of those hats, not just your co-angler hat.
Right.
And so you need resources like that.
Yeah. And it was a great program. They gave me a team of business mentors, and we had like a demo day, kind of like a pitch event at the very end. And but one of my business mentors was a commissioner for Arkansas Game and Fish, and I actually met him in person at a local event at Bass Pro's White River Convention Center. It was the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony banquet, and my mentor was there, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll introduce you to Bill Dance." I was like, and
a little starstruck.
Yeah, so I waited my turn, and I got to sit, and this was about a month before the app went live, and I got to sit with him for about 5 minutes and explain what co-angler was, and I gave him a flyer, and he pretty much told me, he said, "I think that's great and it'll work. Keep me updated." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how to keep you updated. You're Bill Dance. Like, I don't know even how to get a hold of you." But fast forward, probably 6 months later, I was in an event in Tulsa. It was the Bassmaster Classic Expo, and I was down there doing some promotion stuff, and ended up walking past the Garmin booth and seeing Bill Dance sitting there, signing autographs. I was like, I'm going to get in line, get a picture with him, and then jog his memory about my co-angler app.
Remember meeting me.
And so I had my app open. I went up there, got my photo, and I was like, "Hey, Bill, I don't know if you remember me. I met you, last year at the Hall of Fame, and I was telling you about my co-angler app. Well, it's live now." And it's like, here it is, and there's trips. I was showing him, scrolling, and he was looking at it and nodded. And then he kind of stopped and sat back and looked at me. He's like, "So what's your goal? What are you trying to do?" And I kind of caught me off guard. And I said, "I'm trying to make fishing more accessible, more affordable, and more fun."
Got him. Your 30-second elevator pitch.
And he kind of nodded and then looked over his shoulder and called over this blonde-headed lady and said something to her. And next thing I know, I'm at the back of the booth with her. And that was his niece, Leslie Finney, the chief operating officer for Bill Dance Outdoors. And she said, Uncle Billy told me to help you.
Uncle Billy.
So we're going to help you.
That is awesome.
And she just loved what I was doing, and got Bill's permission to help, do some of this social media and promotion. And then they did an endorsement letter for me. And they've just been a tremendous advocate and ambassador for what it is that I'm trying to do. And so,
are you still a chemist?
No, I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and I've been full-time on Co-Angler for a little over 2 years now. So,
and that's a scary step as an entrepreneur, is to bite that bullet.
The Lord leads you down a path that you can't necessarily see around the corner, and but there's a little bit of a backstory as to why I'm not a chemist anymore. I don't know that I was jumped off the cliff as much as pushed.
Thrown, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, there was some budget cuts at the company I worked at, and I was in the middle of that Code Labs program, about to finish up. And this is where that clockwork, kind of surprises you in hindsight. But I got let go from work, and they gave me an incredibly generous severance. And it was half my salary for 16 months. And I was really not even upset that I'd lost my job. I was like, you guys just gave me over 50
I'll take
grand.
that.
Yeah. And so being that I was in the middle of that Code Labs program, working hard on Co-Angler, I was like, this just bought me some time. This just gave me some runway. And so rather than just turn around, I have a master's degree, rather than just turn around and start putting in job applications and going right back into the workforce, I was like, I'm going to see if I can get this going. And it wasn't 4 to 5 weeks after I got let go from work that I found out I was getting that $75,000 grant. I was like, that's it. I've got
seed
it.
money.
Yeah. What I know now, that $75,000 grant was great, but that was just
fast.
It goes fast.
It goes really
fast. It's just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But, I was super excited at the time, but it made me feel like, it meant not necessarily meant to be, but it was encouraging to keep going down the path that I was. But
well, the outdoor world, the real life world, it's passion based. Now it's got to be profitable. You think of your mentor, Bill Dance. You think of professional fishermen and women. You think of Bass Pro Shops right here in Springfield, Missouri. There is profit to be made. It's a business, but it all started with that passion for something, and yours was fishing and the connectivity, and I think it just all falls into place. So, what are you doing for 2026? Right.
Well, that's where the focus on the Ozarks region is really paramount, and so trying to develop a multi-pronged approach to my distribution channels and marketing channels. One of the recent wins that has continued to allow me to do this full time is me receiving third place in a nationwide social impact award pitch competition through the Richard King Mellon Foundation for some of my conservation and mental health and well-being initiatives.
That name.
And this was another one of those stories where it was almost like clockwork, and I wasn't aware of the watchmaker's timeline, but I was getting towards the end of my runway and was needing to start kind of planning and being proactive. And so I started looking for jobs because I didn't know if some of these things that were out there were going to come through. And I had put in an application to work and got accepted in a job offer to work as an environmental consultant. And 5 days before I was supposed to start that job, I found out I won third place in this social impact award competition and got a $315,000 investment into Co-Angler. And I was able to call my future boss and say, actually, I'm not taking that job. And I hired my developer full time, and actually just got back from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago for the awards ceremony. And yeah, that filled up the gas tank and gave me, really what I saw a quote earlier today, like, you can wink at a girl in the dark and she's not going to know you're, I just totally butchered that, but, well, no, how's it go? It's like business.
Think about it.
Yeah. It's like, if you don't advertise, not advertising your business is like winking at a girl in the dark. Like, you know what you did, but nobody else
knows about it.
That, I still kind of butchered it. But,
no, I follow you. I'm tracking.
But, so it's given me that much needed, marketing budget, at least to have a market, because I left out another little piece of the story. Like, when that severance ran out from my previous employer, I sold my house and cashed out my equity. Like, I was lucky enough to own a house before these prices went sky high. And so I doubled my money on my home, and I was able to actually go and hire, people, interns from that Code Labs program to work on helping me get my native mobile app built. So in April, when we launched that app, that was just me like self-funding that deployment and hiring scrappy, smart, young junior software developers. One in particular, my developer Tyler Fenton, who I hired full time, and he's just been a tremendous, person to help get this app up and live and manage it. And so yeah, that was something.
Well, I think that I've talked to several entrepreneurs at different stages of their business, but you have to be willing to take those risks. And entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. And I think that's something that an outsider looking in is like doesn't see.
Right.
So I like to ask everybody this question, whether they're an entrepreneur or not, no matter their background. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Right. Be patient.
Be patient.
Yeah, patience is a virtue. And I know, nothing happens on our timelines or when we want it to happen. And, persistence and tenacity and grit are probably the best qualities you can have as an entrepreneur. The inability to quit. Ideas are cheap, but the follow through is what really will take a toll on you. And I'm 4 years in on this endeavor, and I'm still just getting started. And the finish line, wherever it may be, seems, light years away. But, definitely patience, because, it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. But, you see these wins and these milestones that you hit. Well, yeah, it's nice to stop and smell the roses, but as soon as the dust settles, then it's right back to work.
Your brain is already moving on to that next thing. It has to be.
Yeah, or else you'll just, sit idle. And so, you learn, even when those milestones get bigger and bigger and you get, what seems like closer and closer to the top of the mountain, there's always another mountain. Thanks, Miley Cyrus, for that song.
Good job with that. Good job.
But
that musician in you.
Right. Well, it's a great song.
It is a great song.
But yeah, that's patience would be number one. So.
Well, John, thank you. You've made me want to go join a fishing trip. Maybe it's okay. I think this is a whole other element of, and going back into that marketing, is that advertising just those non-fishermen,
right?
Getting them to that niche. They just want to get outdoors. They want to make that connection.
Yeah.
So hopefully you've lit that spark in me, and I know you're going to light that spark in others. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you? How can we follow along your journey with you?
So coangler.com, COANGLER.
And you can still get the dash. You still on that one too?
Yeah, both of them will actually take it. We have a redirect if you use the hyphen. Co-angler, pretty much, even if you Google search co-angler, you can find a lot of it. But social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, all that, co-angler, LinkedIn is the easiest. You can send emails to me with questions, John, JOHN at coangler.com without the hyphen. And that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us.
Well, John, thank you for letting us go beyond the gate and into the fishing world right here in the Ozarks with Co-Angler.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond the Gate. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You can also catch us wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes are dropping every other Wednesday. If you want more content, visit AroundTheOzarks.com and subscribe to our daily newsletter. I'm Jamie Johansen, and join us next time for more stories of grit, growth, and the spirit of rural life.